Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to pull up my notes here because, believe it or not, 20 minutes is not enough time, you guys. I need like 2 hours. So I was struggling trying to limit my notes for tonight. I'm super honored to be here. I love that more and more of these conversations are happening in our nation, and it really blows me away when I see them held in a church. This is my first time being in this church, but it makes me super grateful for this place. A lot of queer people have been burned by the church, so that this is happening. Like, you guys, this is going to be part of the healing of queer people. So thank you for being part of the healing work of this world. There is a huge need for that. So I'm married to a phenomenal human named John, and we have 3 little kids, ages, hi, what's your name? How old are you? Are you 3? She is 3. So nice to meet you. I have a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And I am in grad school right down the road at United. Are you guys familiar with United? Yes. Okay, I had never heard of United until a year ago this month. And I am so glad I did because it is a phenomenal community and I am thriving in that place. And I have my own small business selling fair trade jewelry, and something I love, and it's my mission is to empower women out of poverty, and I do that by helping provide them with jobs, making these beautiful fair trade certified products, and I market them on their behalf here in the U.S. So I was raised super conservative Baptist, and thought I was straight my whole life up until a year and a half ago, you guys. And this is a common story for a lot of people where people don't realize they're queer, whether it's LGBT or Q, until their adult life, or even like me, I'm in what I would call a heteronormative marriage. It looks like I'm straight because I'm married to a male. And it wasn't until 7 years into our marriage I realized, hey, I'm not straight. That changes things. And it was about a year and a half ago that the coin finally went in the slot, and a bunch of little things finally led to that aha moment. I remember watching a show on Netflix a few years ago, and one of the actors made a comment saying, I don't fall in love with genders, I fall in love with people. And that deeply resonated with me. And then I was taking this class online, and we were introducing ourselves, and a woman introduced herself, and we were saying how we identify, our pronouns and our orientation, and she said, this is my name, and I fall in love with all kinds of beautiful people. And that resonated with me. And then I support a local theater company here in the Twin Cities. My friend who is trans founded it. And so a lot of LGBTQ people come to our productions. And I noticed like I was very magnetically drawn to these LGBTQ people in a romantic way. And I was like, this is weird because I'm straight. I feel towards them what I feel towards my spouse. And then it hit me. Oh my gosh, I'm not straight. And a small form of panic started to grow inside of me because that realization was going to change everything. It was going to change the church I was going to because my church was not affirming. And I was on the preaching team at my church, and I knew once if my sexuality ever became known, they would not let me continue to preach there. And that really broke my heart because I love preaching. I loved church. I was very involved in my church, and I was about to lose that. I was looking to go to seminary, and the seminary I was looking into going to was not affirming, so now it means I had to start all over and find a new seminary. I knew I was going to lose friends, and my family's not affirming, my parents aren't affirming, so I knew I had the risk of losing, or that relationship changing. But the one person I actually wasn't afraid to come out to was my spouse. And you guys, he is a phenomenal human. I'm so lucky to do life with him. And we were in the kitchen one night, and I said something like, hey, John, do you want to know something interesting about me? And he was like, sure. And so then I came out to him as queer. I don't remember what exactly I said, and his words after I came out to him were, I think that's amazing. I think that's totally normal. I love you, and I completely support you. Just sobbed. Because even if he came out to me as gay, I would have a bunch of questions for him. But he just held that space for me and didn't immediately jump into an interrogation, just like held that for me. And like held me with his love. And later that night, he was sitting on the couch, I think, reading a book or something, and I'm like feeling super emotional because now I know, like, oh my gosh, what are my parents gonna think, and what are my friends gonna, how are they gonna respond to me? And I came on the couch next to him, I curled up and laid my head in his lap, and I just cried and cried and cried. I was gonna lose my church. I just felt like I was gonna lose so much. And when I finished crying, John was like, did you have a good cry? And I'm like, yes, I did. Thank you. So he's been phenomenal through the whole process. But what was really cool, as hard as it was in that moment to realize, so much of my life made sense in that moment. I was really into a girl in elementary school for a couple of years. I remember when a band came out named Hanson when I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I thought they were sisters, and I was totally into them. And then I found out they were brothers, and I was equally into them. Like, that had no bearing on my attraction to them. And I remember I was riding my school bus one day, and I was thinking, do other girls feel this way? Like, where the gender has no bearing? And I was obsessed with them. And then in 9th grade was the first time I met publicly out queer people, and I loved them. They were my good friends. They were nothing what my church had taught me to be. I was taught that queer people were wayward sinners, that they had no respect for truth, that they were a perversion. And these people were the most loving, accepting, amazing community I'd ever met. And I remember in 9th grade hating myself for being straight because I so badly wanted to date them. And then in college, I was briefly attracted to a girlfriend of mine. So all these things like just came flooding back when I realized I was queer. I'm like, that makes sense. And when something finally makes sense after years of never being able to name it or articulate it, feels so good, even in the midst of the unknown and the fear. Look at this real quick so I don't get lost. So I realized this 1.5 years ago, and for the following year, I slowly came out to core people in my life. And the last big hurdle was 1 year later that I decided I needed to tell my parents. So I was getting to a place, I highly value authenticity and vulnerability, and like I have a blog and I have a vlog and I'm very open, and so I knew this was something I could not keep secret because this is how I'm wired. I just tell my story, and I believe our stories have the power to change the world. So I knew my parents would appreciate probably hearing from me instead of a blog post. So I came out to my mom. I was actually too scared to tell my dad, which makes me really sad, and that's not on him, that's on me. And my parents have been really good in the sense that they keep reminding me that they still love me, which is great, but still aren't affirming. So it's a really weird space to be where it's like, we love you, but we think this is wrong. It's like, okay, I can't change me, you know? So it's been a pretty emotional journey, and it's going to be an ongoing journey for sure with them. And so then just 6 weeks ago, I came out publicly, and I posted a video on my YouTube channel and onto all my social media sites, and I announced it to the world, and I was super scared. I was in bed for like 12 hours after that because I called it a vulnerability hangover. Where it's just like you're exhausted and you kind of almost wish you could go back and take it back, but you know it's the right thing to do. And it's amazing. I got so many positive comments and love and affirmation, and a handful of hurtful comments, and then just a handful of really vile comments. And it's amazing, it didn't matter how many positive comments I got, those few vile messages destroyed me. I could still cry about it. Because I'm still me. I'm still your friend. I'm still your same mom that you've had play dates with. We went to college. We have all this history together. I have not changed. But this one detail about me gave them permission to say really horrible things. And I'm like, man, if I was so terrified to come out, and I'm in a secure marriage, I'm an adult, I'm doing my own thing, I can't imagine being a teenager trying to come out when so much of your life is dependent upon your parents and your friends. So our nation's making a lot of progress, but the fact that I was so terrified as an adult who lives independently just shows how much pressure there still is to conform to this heteronormative way of life in America. And then a question like, how does my identity affect my life? It affects every area of my life. It affects my marriage. This is something John and I are in continual dialogue about because I'm still learning who I am and what this means for me. What does this mean for our marriage? Our marriage is what sometimes people call mixed orientation marriage. There's actually a ton of us. After I came out publicly, a lot of people wrote into me, and a lot of these people I knew who are also like this, where one spouse is straight and one person is not straight. They're either gay, like I have a guy friend who came out to me, he's gay and he's married to a woman, and how hard that's been. And I have another friend who identifies as bi and is married to a straight guy, and so on and so forth. So there's so many of us. And so in my first video when I came out, I was like, one of my main points I want to get across is we're all around you. And it kind of sounds creepy, but it's not. It's a really good thing. We're your teachers, we're your kid's soccer coach, we're your neighbors, we're your colleagues, we're your boss, we're your mom, we're your daughters. We're all around you, and you love us and you adore us, and we have really amazing relationships. And like, just see our humanity is basically was my point I was trying to get across. And then like another video came out, I just said to my community, my prayer and my hope is that you're the kind of person that your queer friend can come out to. Be that kind of person. So be really respectful. If you have a friend around you who's making gay jokes that are not cool, speak up, because there's people like me watching and seeing and determining, is this someone I can come out to or not? Okay, don't feel safe here, I'm not coming out to them personally. And that makes me sad because I feel like I have to hide part of myself from a friendship that I shouldn't have to hide myself in. It affects the way I parent. I've always been intentional because I've been affirming for years, but I'm even more intentional about talking to my children about this. Like when my kids play dolls, I'm like, let's do mommy, mommy, let's do daddy, daddy, because I know how much pressure there's in society to conform to this heteronormative way of being. Like our movies, our plays, our love songs, they're all about men and women loving each other. And so there's pressure, this is right, this is the only way of being. And so there's people like me, and like, I don't necessarily see myself, or my non-binary friends, or my trans friends, like, well, what about me? Like, I have a lover, but I don't see myself represented in movies or stories or songs. And so we talk about this with my kids, and I bring my kids to events like this, because I want them to hear from different voices and different walks of life, so they know that this is normal, that diversity is our strength. It's not something we have to fear. I think one of the biggest lies humanity's ever been told is that there is such thing as the other. We're one big human family, and we are way better off together than divided and apart. My queerness affects my small business. One reason I was afraid to come out is I knew people would no longer shop from me or host gatherings for me because of that. And that happened recently. A few weeks ago, I went to hosting. A cousin of mine hosted for me, and I was surprised. She's super conservative. She agreed to host for me before I came out, and then I came out, and I thought she'll probably cancel, but she didn't, and I was really amazed, and that meant a lot to me, because by them canceling on me, sure, I lose business, but that means my artisans lose their job, because no one's buying their products from them. But then I went to the party, and after the party ended, she cornered me and kind of told me how I'm confused, and tried to relate to me by saying when she was on medication for surgery, she got confused and did weird things, and so that's basically what I am. And I understood she's trying to relate to me, but I'm like, I'm not on drugs, and I'm not confused. And this is kind of hurtful that you would corner me and use this opportunity to do that. So that still is a fear of mine. I do a lot of my business on Facebook, and so I meet new people on Facebook, and some people want to shop for me, but then I also post on my Facebook about being queer, and so I know I'm losing customers that way. So that's just another way that it affects my life. I left my church. I don't have a church right now because of my queerness. I was really burned by my church, and so that makes me really sad. I have always been super involved, I love being a volunteer. I love helping with children. I love teaching. I love speaking. I love organizing. I'm a natural activist. I love community organizing, and now losing like the very foundation of which I've done most of my life was really hard. And so now I'm just kind of in a season of like kind of healing and deconstructing this toxic theology I was raised with, that if you're queer, you're not welcome here. If you're straight, you are, kind of thing. So I'm on that journey right now. It's what led me to choose United, because they're open and affirming, and they welcome diverse perspectives and people, and I just Oh, is that a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which United are you talking about?
United Theological Seminary right down the road.
Oh, okay.
Yes, good question. Good question. And it's a form of the community I now find myself in. I've lost some people in my life, but I have this amazing community at United, and I just want everyone to meet all my people at United because they're phenomenal. And then lastly, yeah, it's had painful moments, you guys, but it's been a really beautiful journey, and I'm really passionate about this intersection of being queer and being a person of faith and talking about, do you have a question?
Yeah.
What's your question? Oh, okay. Thank you for showing us that. I love kids. They're so cute. They are our future. They give me so much hope. The way kids love and are so brave, I'm just like, girl, you are the future. We love you. Yes?